G'day YouTube, just a quick video of some common spray tip sizes that I use daily in my work. A lot of painters, as I've talked about in my other videos, a lot of trade qualified painters have never actually used spray equipment before, and they buy a spray unit and they assume it's set up and ready to go to do everything they need to do out of the box, but that's not the case. You're actually going to have to spend a bit of time working out which tips and filters and guns and lines and everything you're going to want to use to work as a contractor efficiently and very cleanly and efficiently. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the common tip size I use for residential work. Even commercial work, you can use this kind of stuff. You might want to go with some larger numbers because you'll be doing larger areas. But generally speaking, I always use the fine finish tips, which I constantly talk about, and the reason for that is the reduced overspray. As far as machine pressure, you're going to want, depending on machine size, if you've got a big machine, you're probably going to want to spray on a quarter to just under a half. Smaller machine, you want to spray on probably a half to 3/4 of the available pressure on the machine, and this will reduce your overspray even further. But what you can do is you can actually use these units in furnished houses with minimal covering, minimum masking, generally minimum mess, using spray boards and not a lot of drop sheets, once you work out your machine and how all these things work. So this is a 414 fine finish tip. So that is, you get the first number, which is a 4, that gives you an 8-inch fan, and 14 is the orifice size of the tip. So you can spray a bit thicker materials with this tip. Now it's got an ovalized shape orifice, so it will soften the edges basically. So when you spray, you won't get hard edges like you will with the standard spray tip, which is a blue tip. So this is a 414 that I use maybe for roofs. That'd be about all I would use it for. Maybe weatherboards. So that's your 8-inch fan basically. Now this next one is a 312. So I would use this interior on, say, corners, wall sections, ceilings. You could use it on doors, but it would be advisable to maybe go a bit lower on the orifice size, maybe to a 11 or a 10, but you can use it for that. If you don't want to change tips, you can just stand back that little bit further and reduce your orange peel just that little bit more, but there will be a little bit more overspray when you do that. This is probably the most common tip I use because the 12 gives you the least amount of clogs because it's a little bit bigger. You can pump most materials through it. So that's your 6-inch fan. It's a 312, so you double the 3, you get 6. Now this is a 210. This is one of the ones I use a lot of. This is a Wagner tip. I'm using a Wagner tip guard in there. That's a 4-inch fan, basically at 10 inches, and the 10 is the orifice size. So the 2, you double the 2, you get 4 inches, a 4-inch fan, and then the 10 is the orifice size. So this is a very fine tip. You're going to get a minimum amount of orange peel. Also a very small amount of overspray with this tip. This is great for interior work on smaller size cornices. Bigger cornices, you're going to want to use a 312, 311 size tip. So there you got basically a 4-inch fan at the correct distance you should be holding from the surface. Now this tip's not one I've actually used very much. It's a 108. Now you could use this for cutting in some sections or some really fine work. A lot of verandas have got posts on them. I've on occasion masked them up and actually sprayed the palings with these with a 108 tip because you're only talking a surface that's maybe an inch or an inch and a half wide at times. So for that sort of stuff, it can be quite neat. Again, it's not a tip that you would use or most painters would use. So most painters maybe never use this tip, but it is handy to just sort of have if you've just got to do some really fine, small work. And it's a 108, so it's a 2-inch fan at 10 inches with the 08 orifice, so very fine. You can see that's a very small tip. You can actually get quite a high standard of work using these airless machines with the fine finish tips. A lot of guys just sort of stick to a 517, and that really is, it's not very professional. What that will do is give you quite a lot of overspray. It will burn up too much material, and it gives you a very rough finish on the surface. So a nice spray finish, but it'll have a very thick orange peel. So that's why you go for the smaller orifice size. It's a much more professional job and minimal mess for the customer and for everyone around, like cars and things like that. You've got to think about those things. You don't want to be having an overspray going on a car down the road, particularly if you're using solvent-based paints. And here's the 414, 312, 210, and the 108, so you can see there what they're all like.